Playoff season is here in a big way. I'm Patrick Donnelly, joined by Evan Marinofsky. NEPSAC quarterfinals and the Elite Eight large school and small school tournaments are wrapped up for the night. We're burning the midnight oil, talking about all the action. We'll start in the Elite Eight. And the matchup that might be most interesting didn't play out how we thought it would. A goaltending duel between Cushing and St. Seb's. Cushing takes it 2-1 in overtime.
I was shocked. I think there are the two most shocking results I think of the Elite Eight quarterfinals were that Cushing Seb's game because I thought, all right, it's going to be high scoring or Cushing's just going to score a bunch. Pele Russo for St. Sebastian's played outstanding. I mean, he really did. 34 saves, kept them in it. Cushing was pressuring them like crazy for the first two periods. Um, but Sebs kind of found a second gear in the third period, went, all in. Matt Cataldo scores with 10 seconds left. Incredible finish. And then I'm like, all right, okay, Sebs is in control. They have the momentum. When overtime started, Sebs actually got a chance off in the first 30 seconds. I'm like, all right, they're pushing. And then Cushing went down the other way, and Max Deneen finishes it. But I was shocked that was a low scoring game. And then on the other side of it, KUA St.
Yep.
George's initially I thought was going to kind of be maybe the game, where KUA runs away with it. St. George's hadn't played. St. George's had the lowest opponent's winning percentage of any team in the playoffs. So I'm like, all right, well, they're good on paper, but like we don't really know what they're going to be like. They're driving 3.5 hours to Kimball Union. Like, there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff involved with that. You think, all right, this is gonna be like 5 or 6-2. Wasn't. St. George's was the better team the entire game, pretty much. They controlled. I wrote about it after. St. George's played like a team with nothing to lose. They controlled the puck better. They were super aggressive. They were way more physical. And they were the better team for most of that game. And they're the better team for most of that overtime. They took two penalties in OT. They killed both of them off. And I think why that Andrew O'Sullivan goal, which was gorgeous, by the way, went through the entire other team. I think kind of why that was so heartbreaking was because St. George's had just killed off that second penalty. The other thing was St. George's thought they scored. And so I talked with Ali Skelly, the head coach of St. George's, after the game, and I guess the referee said something like, "Well, it went in, but it was after the whistle, and I lost sight of it. So I lost sight of it. I blew my whistle, and then it went in, or something like that." But St. George's left the bench. Most of their players left the bench. They celebrated like they won. It was a net front scramble. I was watching the stream. I couldn't tell. People were texting me after, like, did it go in? I was like, I can't tell from the stream center ice. But heartbreaking way for St. George's to lose. But to me, like, you can't, for Sebs and St. George's, you can't hang your head because both of those teams prove that they're right there. Obviously, it doesn't matter this time of year. You got to win those games, but for both of them, especially St. George's. I mean, St. George's was the better team throughout the entire game, pretty much. And I think it goes to show that I think for Cushing and KUA, they squeak by, but they weren't pretty wins for either team. I mean, KUA gets all their goals from the top line again, and Cushing, kind of good defense, but just sneaks by Sebs. So, yeah, both of those were interesting. And then Avon Holderness and Salisbury Brunswick. Um, Avon Holderness, I expected to be close. It was close. And Salisbury Brunswick, I expected Salisbury to win just because they recently had played. And Salisbury kind of plays a very structured game. They shut Brunswick down, and that was that. So exciting field, though, that's for sure.
Yeah, and we talk about Salisbury, multiple times this season, just being a better second half team than they are at the start of the season. Seems like they're hitting their stride. Then moving on to large school, you called it Berkshire an 8 seed beating Nobles the 1.
Yeah, I did. That it's interesting. Sometimes you're like, oh man, I got that. I can't believe I got that. But that the large school field was really, and this was one thing I'd said going in. This was the field that where you're gonna see some upsets, and you did. Three of the four were won by the lower seed. Berkshire beats Nobles 8-5. Kent beats Deerfield 5-1. Dexter beats Bell Hill 6-3. That went chalk. That was actually an upset I picked, so I picked that wrong. I went 9 for 12 in the first round. I will take that. I think in this, I will
Yeah.
gladly take 9 for 12. But then the one that surprised me was Andover and Lawrence. Andover put the beat down on the Spartans 6-2. Again, I didn't see that game, but I mean that's a big win for Andover. And then Berkshire explodes for 8 goals. That was high scoring throughout. 8-5 the final there. I mean, that is shock. I mean, I didn't I forget what I predicted for the score. I think I predicted it to be like a 5-3 type game. But for 8 goals, I mean, that's a lot for Noble's, young defense, Bloomfield and net. I don't know exactly what happened there. But good for Berkshire, for getting 8 goals and winning that game. I mean, I think they're stronger than their 8 seed kind of lends them to be. Big win for Dexter. Belmont Hill was up for most of that game. Dexter only came back late in the third, so Dexter takes that. And then Kent, I expected to win that game. So we'll get Berkshire and Kent and Dexter and Andover. And I think those are two interesting matchups. Berkshire's hot, lower seed. Kent kind of has more firepower on the roster. And then Dexter, Andover. Andover's, coming off that win. I think Dexter's a deeper team. Again, we'll make our full predictions, tomorrow and when our brains are a little bit more clear. But interesting field with the large school, that's for sure.
Yeah, we'll wrap up with the small school. You had Rivers and Frederick Gunn taking care of business. They'll meet in the semifinals. Canterbury beating Tilton, and another big upset. Number 7 Pomfret beating number 2 St. Mark's.
Didn't see that coming. I did not see that happening. I thought that small would go completely chalk. I thought, but it almost did, and then it didn't. I didn't watch any of those games. You and I were both focused on Elite Eight for boys and
Yeah,
girls. But good for Pomfret for winning that game. Going into St. Mark's, that's not an easy place to go in there and do damage to them. They did. They played a very tough game, and it worked out. Canterbury is 7-4, not surprising. Canterbury's so good offensively. I think that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. They're going to play Pomfret next, so Pomfret's going to have to, weather the storm that is Canterbury. And then Rivers Frederick Gunn's a really interesting matchup coming up. Because you got a really young team versus a really old team. And we've said it multiple times now about these really young teams. You don't know who's showing up. They could be really consistent and really good and wow you, or they could be a dud. And I think that's sort of the tough part for Frederick Gunn is which Rivers team is showing up. Lately, they've been all good. So I
yeah,
think we know who's probably going to show up in that one. But interesting matchups for sure. Now we got to make our predictions. You're what, 7 for 8 on the girls, and I'm
yep,
nine
7
for
for 8.
12 on the boys. So we're both we I always worry when we make our predictions. I'm like, I'm really worried if we're like, 2 for 12 or something scary. And it's like, man, people are really gonna be like, do these guys know what they're talking about? Like, do these guys go and actually watch these teams? So it's good to know that, okay, I think we know what we're watching. I think we know what we're watching. So that's good.
Yeah, especially girls. Small school, I picked both upsets. I was 1 for 2, but hey, we'll take it. But yeah, we will have you covered with predictions Thursday, Friday, leading into semifinals on Saturday. But I'm Patrick Donnelly with Evan Marinofsky. Enjoy the playoffs.